Jonny Hawkins, wow. So you're in the middle of a tour right now. Thank you for coming in to talk to us here at Jed. They thought we should partner up, having both experienced a lot of family mental illness. And I know, I've watched now, I've been really reading up on you and listening to the music. And first of all, you're so powerful. You're a powerful performer, a powerful singer, which I love. But you're also really a powerful thinker. Like, it really struck me, and forgive me because I'm just going to go here right away and get it out of the way. But when I was like doing all my research on you, and someone wrote, "Is this Jim Morrison reincarnated?" And you see the physicality of that. And then I thought, well, how interesting that at that time in the Jim Morrison generation, these powerful front men, it was kind of cool to self-destruct, and then there was. Right? He must have had some battle with mental illness, clearly. And here you are just kind of flipping that around, like this powerful young male rocker talking about these very sensitive, almost taboo topics in our world, especially in the world of rock and roll, where it's like, it was all based on sex, drugs, rock and roll,
Yeah.
So how does it feel to be, now you're recognized as this voice who's speaking out on mental illness because of your own experience, and just how's that been panning out for you over the years since the No Jenny? And I want to get into that as well. But
first of all, thank you for all the nice nice things you said. It's actually been striking a chord, I think, more than anything else we've talked about. We have a lot of songs that span a lot of different topics, and I think our song Jenny was the one that got the most organic, resounding, just real responses online. People pouring their hearts out, sharing stories that I never would have heard unless we would have cracked the egg with that song. So we kind of saw something that we knew that people out there dealt with similar situations, but it wasn't until we put that song out there that we realized, like, whoa, there's a lot. Like, it's a lot more than we thought. It seems that almost everyone has one person at least. The degrees of separation, whether it's a family member or a friend, are pretty small when it comes to a mental health issue. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's been pretty good because it's really kind of created a family or a community around, or kind of intertwined into the fan base, because a lot of people just enjoy the music on a very passerby, shallow degree, and then there's this bulk of fans that are really connecting to the mental health side. And that's actually kind of what attracted me to music on a deeper level initially, was that kind of mental stability that it provided for me. Initially was like, my mom used to always joke with me, because when I'd come home from school, she could tell if I liked, if I had a good day or a bad day, or I had a crush or not, based on how much I was singing. And so it was like this kind of thermometer for my mental space. And so I started learning how intertwined that was.
You've mentioned that you yourself battle a little bit with touching in and out of depression, anxiety, after seeing your aunt who just completely lost touch. And then going through, watching your sister, Jenny, start to escalate and beyond what was like just the rebellious teenager, the horrible fights with your mom.
Jenny, Jenny, I can't bear, I hear the sound of your body, hit the ground. Oh, Jenny.
First of all, I should ask, how is Jenny?
Actually, and everyone calls her Jenny because the song's named
Jenna.
that. Yeah, my sister's name is Jenna, and she was named after my Aunt Jenny. But for the song's sake, pretty much everyone calls her Jenny. And she's actually doing a lot better at this the last year. But it is most people's life kind of goes in a wave of ups and downs. Hers are just more like this. Much lower and much higher than the average person. So kind of depends on the year or the month that you ask me. But right now, she's on a good path. And everyone in the family is very happy about that.
Is she taking the medication now?
Yes, and she's actually committed to it, which, that's the sign of it having even the possibility of working, is the person who needs to take it has to be of the mindset that they need it. You can't, do it for them, and you're not there every day. And so she's actually committed to it and knows now that, and has told us out of her own mouth that she needs to, which is a huge step. Because before then, I never had any faith that it was gonna get better or go on the right path, because she wasn't in her own mind settled or on what was happening and what she needed for her own health. So that's going in a good direction. And kind of along those same lines, like when you brought up Chris Cornell, Chester from Linkin Park, that's a great example where you're right in saying that it's not really surprising. The writing was on the wall. Every lyric was about, it was kind of this nihilistic outlook on life, which I can personally relate to and understand because I've been there through a period of my life. I'm so happy I'm not there anymore, which, to anyone listening, that they can know that is a place that you can visit. You don't have to live there. Right. And the way I kind of got out of that nihilism that I feel like maybe Chester and some others in the music industry especially are naturally inclined to go towards because of the artistic side. I got out of it basically by not taking my thoughts so seriously, and understanding that my brain is a tool, and oftentimes it's a tool that goes off the tracks, and its whole evolutionary job was to find problems in the world and solve them, and to protect me from a tiger jumping out of the woods and eating me. And when a lot of those real world life-threatening problems are removed, and I'm not really worried about a predator, I'm not worried about what I'm gonna eat, my brain's still there working overtime to find problems. So it creates all these very confusing ones that we know as the modern man problems, which are existential problems and nihilistic problems and problems of anxiety and depression and all these things. And so I basically, when I was in that nihilistic state of mind that many of these artists get to, where nothing really feels like it matters, where you don't feel like you matter, even good things in your life, the flavor and the taste kind of just disappears. I just felt that, that's actually not reality. I'm actually living in my head right now.
And it's just thought, right? It's all really just thoughts. I mean, that's, in Buddhism, of course, they say the heart is the mind. And that once we realize we're just, you change your mind, you change your world, you just change your thoughts. Anxiety is a good one, because what is anxiety? It's just ultimately worrying about things we have no control over anyway. Yeah. It's just like projecting into this future, and I think a lot of depression is coming from this, what have I done, where have I failed in the past? But when we are in that moment and just able to say, these are just thoughts. I mean, that's pretty powerful that you can do that. What do you think has given you that kind of, innate sensibility to just be able, because not a lot of people can do that.
Well, yeah, so I would, that's a really good way to ask it, because there are definitely times when I can't do that. And I don't know why. Like the other day, I was so zen, if you will, and I could remove myself from my thoughts and kind of separate myself from all of it and go to that bird's eye view. But then there's times when I'm in the thick of it. I'm, deep in the ocean, in the waves of my emotions, and there's not a quick way out. You know what I mean?
What do you do in those times?
In those times, I would say there's a few tools. I like to think of it almost like jujitsu, because I practice jujitsu and I really like that. And it has taught me a lot about life when you grapple with someone, because there are a lot of situations that you get in jujitsu where all the leverage is against you. Your opponent is slowly creeping into a choke, and you feel like your body goes into panic mode because the cards are stacked, and your emotions kick in, and you're like, oh, I'm losing oxygen, I'm getting tired, how do I fight through this? And the first thing is, some religious traditions use the word faith. People who are not religious, maybe you can use a different word like trust. I always like that word because I don't think it's tied into anything specific. It's just trusting that you're going to keep breathing. Relax. Trust that like you don't have to do anything this exact moment. You're not going to solve it this exact moment.
Where do you think that trust, who are you giving that trust to in that moment? I'm so curious.
So I found a lot of, that first step, you know, in the tools I was talking about is trust. And for me, it came through a guy named Alan Watts. He's like, you know, how do you pump your heart? How do you do it? And it's like, well, I don't know how I do it. You know, how were you born? How did you make that happen? You didn't make that happen. You know, you don't even make your body digest its food. Most of the things that give you the existence and the life and the air in your lungs, you're not doing. You're not doing any of that. So the trust comes in the fact that all of this is happening outside of your control. So trust it. You know what I mean? Even when it hurt when you were a baby, you know, if you had conscious thoughts, I don't know, but if you could imagine for a little thought experiment as a baby being pushed out of the womb, you would think that you were dying.
Right.
You know, you're being pushed away from everything that is giving you life. You're being crushed into this smaller space, and you're being thrust into this world that you don't even know how to breathe in yet. And so I always think about that with any kind of pressure time where the world just feels like it's doing this. You just let go and trust, just like a baby, you know, being born, and know that it's turning you into something else. You're transitioning, you're changing, and that's the first thing. And then the other steps when I'm in that deep place where I can't just hit the eject button is a step by step. It's little victories. It's inches. An inch is a good thing. You don't have to go a mile. Just go an inch and then pat yourself on the back for it. Reward yourself. Tell yourself, that's good. All right, I got an inch. Just focus on your breathing. Just focus on one good thing. It's really just redirecting focus. You know, music helps do that. It gives you a power to do that in those moments. Inspiration does that. I remember when I've gone through a lot of my hardest emotional times, there was two parts to my plan. One was a big breakfast filled with fats and proteins, and clinical psychologists have proven this, that, you know, hearty breakfasts and the consistency of that help cognitive function and mental stability. Whereas at other times in my life, when I'm emotionally, I think, a little more stable and I'm in a good place, I can go without breakfast and I can do intermittent fasting. So it's just depending on where you're at in your life, there's different tools, there's different approaches. So that was the first part. The other part was I would just go on YouTube and find inspirational videos from people that were inspiration filled, you know, those passionate people that just give you energy, and I would just put them on and let them talk. And I would just have them on, I would brush my teeth, and even in those moments when just brushing your teeth or the smallest task feels like the weight of the world, you know, it's heavy, those little things would just give me enough to get that little inch, and then that little inch turns into 2 inches and 3 inches throughout the day, and you start getting momentum. So that would be my focus, is getting momentum, get energy. And there's a lot of places to get it now. Almost everyone has a phone. Everyone has YouTube. There's so many inspiring videos out there and people that will give you energy and music that will give you energy. And those are healthy drugs from my point of view.
Absolutely. So it's so wonderful, Jonny. I mean, you've cited a lot of resources that are totally available to people out there. I mean, a lot of people don't know that, you know, Jed is one of these resources that is really trying to, you know, we're going to high schools now and really reaching people at a young age to say, hey, listen, you know, we're here as a resource. There's resources out there, you know, because obviously there are still people who get to that dark place, can't see the bird's eye view, and, you know, take their own life. How would you encourage a young person to start paying attention, in other words, if that makes sense?
How young?
You know, we were talking about
That's
this
a good
earlier.
question.
Jed's going to high schools now.
Yeah, okay.
But you know, you talked about, I loved one thing I read on you where you said your grandmother just said you were an empath. And I think that's such an important word that we don't hear that often, and it has this, you know, sort of mystical association, but I think a lot of young people are, and I think they're tuned into that very sensitive nature at a young age. So, so how young, you ask? Well, when did you start feeling like, wait, I'm an empath. I'm really sensitive to other people. I want to nurture. I want to fix. I'm very affected by my environment. When did you start being aware of that, do you think?
So I think there was two profound moments that I remember being really aware. One was being directly aware of being an empath and the sensitivity and all that, which was realizing that I was an artist. And I think my sister, when my mom had cancer, my sister was kind of self-destructing, and I had woken up to screaming and fighting. That was basically my alarm clock for a year, was just bloody murder, screaming my mom at her and her at my mom. And it felt like I was living in a war zone for a little while there. And so I remember just kind of like, I don't know, I just went to my room and I was just kind of crying, but I was kind of hiding it, because especially being a dude, you hide it and you're like, I'm not crying, you are, And my dad was like, he's like, you always were a sensitive kid. He got to see a different point of view than I did. He always saw that I was sensitive. The other time I noticed it was the complete opposite. I think I had learned to cope with that sensitivity by being the complete opposite and very cold. Someone could have told me their whole family had died and they had experienced the worst tragedy in the world, and I would feel nothing. Nothing, not even if they were crying right in front of me, I couldn't feel anything. It was just this coldness. And then I'd feel like a bad person, because I'm like, I should be feeling something right now. So that was the flip side of the coin for me.
Do you think there is still a lot of stigma around mental health, around medication? And
I think there is. I even feel, as knowledgeable as I am about all this stuff, I still on a gut level will still have a stigma towards someone. And you know what I mean? Just on the unthinking part of me, the monkey brain,
right,
will be like, oh, really? They need to do that to deal with this problem? Can't they just toughen up? You know what I mean? I think those thoughts, and I'm still, as conscious as most people can be about these issues. So I think it's something that is on an animalistic kind of monkey brain level. We kind of judge each other. And I just think that's kind of the truth about society and relationships. And so I do think it is a worthwhile endeavor and very important to put energy towards changing that stigma to where it becomes a thing that people are kind of born into, a normalcy about certain things that are healthy and good to, treat or give someone the help they need. But on the flip side of the coin, I think there's also the reality, like I was saying, that, if you're listening to this, the stigma may not be gone in your lifetime. You know what I mean? That's a possibility, right? So if all that stigma is still there and you still feel that, judgment or pressure from people around you, you're not going to find the answer in changing those people's minds. You're going to find it in changing your own mind and really, like we were talking about earlier, treating your mental health as your own, baby that you care about and you nurture.
That's a great point, because, truly, we probably won't change the world's opinion, but we can change how we take care of ourselves, our own self-care, our own, okay, do I want to just give in to this voice, these painful thoughts, these painful emotions, and just surrender? Or do I want to get some help and talk about it?
Reaching out for resources from people who are, like the Jed Foundation, it's that are willingly giving it out and very happy to give it out is always a good thing. But I would say, like I was saying earlier, there's so much available at our fingertips now. YouTube has so many inspiring people. We named a few earlier. I would also find the people that resonate with you. Like I said, even if they aren't physically around you and you can't find them in your city or your neighborhood or your family, that's the beauty of YouTube and some of these channels there are people that might work for you. So, you know, there isn't a one size fits all. That's the other thing.
You know, you've been speaking out a lot through song, through music, and a lot of interviews since the No Jenny campaign, which you then turned into a fundraiser for Jed. And how did you find Jed, and why Jed?
Originally, our publicist at 11/7, Jamie Roberts at the time, was felt personally connected to our music because of her own experiences with mental health issues with her in her own family. And so she wanted to bring something positive to that song, and we were all on board. We thought it was a great idea because I always tell people that song's not a pretty song, and it's not what you should say to someone. It's just an honest song. And I think people resonated with the honesty, and so we wanted to take a seemingly dark song and give it some positivity and light, and so that we started looking at organizations, and Jed was one of them that she brought to our attention. And I was really intrigued by it initially because I saw that they were focusing at the time on college-aged, adults. That's when it occurred with my Aunt Jenny that she basically lost her mind. She never really came back from that. But it was at that time period.
In her college?
Yeah, in her college years, she called home and said, "Hey, something's wrong with my brain. Can you come pick me up?" That's literally what she said to my grandmother, and never been the same since. So, yeah, that's how I got in touch with Jed, and then we made them a part of our I Know Jenny campaign with the Jenny music video, and it just all started resonating online, and we're still, proud supporters of Jed and really happy that they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, Jed's very lucky to have you as a voice out there. You're in a good place now, clearly, it seems. And
I still have my days and my weeks like everyone else, and I have my own demons to battle, but for the most part, there's enough of a stability. My house has been built over the years, if you will, on enough of a foundation that storms can come and go, and I'm not worried about it. One lesson I learned was that I heard this producer telling Bon Jovi, and I don't know if it happened, but I was told the story that the producer said, "Hey, be careful what you sing because it's a boomerang. When you put it out there, it comes back and hits your own ears." And what he was touching on was the self-fulfilling prophecy effect, and it's real. It is just so real. I've seen it occur in so many instances of my own life and other people's life that I just think it's a principle of reality where, when we wrote a song called I'll Be Okay, and that was intentional. At that time of my life, I knew that how I was gonna exit that horrible situation in that time of my life was 100% dependent on what I was telling myself.
to close, did you do therapy? Are you in therapy?
Yeah, I've done some counseling and some therapy, and I haven't done a lot recently just because I've been busy, but I try to make it, at least once a month or twice a month. But in times when I need it more, I do it more.
Right. Again, just really putting that self-care. You're taking care of yourself as the paramount importance. It's all we can do, right?
Yeah. Yep. It's very important, and it's a very, very good thing. It's I think it's also a safe place to tell your deepest, darkest thoughts and feel that you're not telling someone who can have leverage on you in a social situation or spread a rumor about you. You have someone who's sworn to secrecy by law,
right.
And they can also provide a clearer mirror of yourself than your friend who doesn't know jack shit about mental health or anything.
Or your family who has such an investment in for their own agenda. Obviously, it's just a natural state of the heart, of course.
Yeah. Some people will guide you the wrong way because it's in their interest to do so.
Exactly. Even innocently, right?
Even innocently, they think that, if they go that way, which is really the way you should go for your own growth and your own health, I might lose them.
Right.
And in their mind, it is a good intention because I love them. We want to stay connected. I've even observed that with some of my own friends recently where, you know, being with somebody you love equals all these real world decisions of having to move somewhere or to see them less. And so you have to kind of stop relying on what people are telling you around you and get someone that is in a place, you know, they're professional, they have a background, and they're going to guide you in an unbiased, professional way.
Jonny, on behalf of the Jed Foundation, thank you so much for, you know, all you're doing with your messaging, for taking the time out of your grueling tour, it looks like, to come talk to us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate the good questions. Seriously, it was
appreciate
enjoyable.
The amazing answers. Have a great show tonight.
Thank you.